Getting your feed pellets right for the method feeder is really, really important. And I'm going to run you through now exactly what I do, because it's one of the biggest questions I get asked. Des, look, show us again, because it's really, really important. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now, there's one thing I learned back last year. I actually fished in Italy in a festival, and I started mixing the Fin Perfect pellets with the Pro Feed pellets, and that was for one reason. The Pro Feed itself is actually processed at the Sonubaits factory, and there's actually some oils that we actually put into the pellet, and that stops the pellet from breaking down, and it also makes it actually a firmer pellet to put on the method feeder, and I like that. And I also like the two different colors. So I've got me two pellets here. I've got me Pro Feed there, and you see it says Pro Feed on the bag, so you can't mix them up. And I've also got me Fin Perfects. You know, these are just a sort of the non-processed pellet, if you like, at our factory. So what I do, I've got me pellet wetter there. If you're a pellet wetter, you can't go wrong. If you want to time them in the water, use a pellet wetter. It's simple. And what I've been doing, I don't actually sort of measure these pellets out. I just roughly do like a 50-50 mix. And especially this time of year as well, when we're in the cooler months. And when I went to Italy, that was in November, and it worked an absolute treat. I won it individually. I didn't draw particularly well over the 2 days, and I just felt that was bang on, and I've been using that since last November. So I've got my pellet wetter there. I'm going to put the the Fin Perfects in first, and then put the Pro Feed in, roughly about the same. And you can mess about with this as you go along. If you're not quite happy with it, you know, sort of put less and more of one or the other. So just quickly as that, zip that up, the old pellet wetter, give that a little shake, just to mix the two pellets together. And you'll see probably from that, you'll see the two different coloured pellets in there. You've got the Pro Feed, which are slightly darker, and you've got the Fin Perfect, which are lighter. And I think that was bang on. So I've got a little EVA bowl there, stick them in, like that. And I'm going to give them 30 seconds. It's something that I do, and I've done for method feeder. I do a lot of method feeder fishing, and I leave them in there for about 30 seconds. I know a lot of people say I leave them for 2 minutes. For me personally, I don't want my pellets soaking up too much, because for me, I can load the pellets in different. Load the pellets on the feeder in a different way. If you soak them too long, you're very limited, I think, to what you can do. Especially if if you want to put it on really hard, because if you're struggling to catch the fish that come into your feeder, when they're soaked too long, you can't do much with them. So if you do it this way, it just gives you more sort of leeway in how to load the feeder. So getting on for about 30. I don't time it. You can time it if you want. I'm roughly 30 seconds, something like that. So take it out of the water, and that's what's so good about the pellet wetter, is it drains off really, really quickly. But a really important fact is, do this, I would say, a minimum of half an hour before you need these pellets, because that water that I've put on will soak through. But because I've only left them in there for 30 seconds, it don't soak through sort of too much. You just keep your pellets nicer, especially if you're fishing like a long sort of 5-hour match, or if you're pleasure fishing. So give them a bit of a shake like that. And I'm just going to take them out, put them in another EVA bowl or a bait container, something like that. Tip them in there. You can see that, two different colours, absolutely beautiful. When you look at that pot now, you can see the two different variations of like the two different brown colours. And like I said, I give them about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour now. Leave them on your side tray, set up your gear. And then what I'll do in a minute, I'm going to show you how I actually go about loading them on the method feeder. I've left them pellets now for half an hour, and they're absolutely perfect now. I can actually get a handful of them, squeeze them, and they actually bind together like that. And what's so nice having them two pellets mixed together is you've got the Fin Perfects, which take the water on really quickly, so they go really spongy, really fast. But the Pro Feed ones, they don't break down nowhere near as quickly. And I love that, because you get that binding effect, and you can adjust that as you want to, like I said earlier, before you mix the two together. But going into the winter months, you know, I do add more Fin Perfects, but when I get into the summer months, I need a pellet that, one, can stick to the feeder, and it does break down quick, and that's what the pro feed pellets do. Because they don't sort of take the water on as much as the fins, it bursts off the feeder really quickly, which is what you want when you're fishing with a method. Get it down to the bottom, and obviously the pellets break off. So what I'm going to do now is run you through now. Obviously, for me with 2 mils around a method, for me it's always the starting point. I just find on whatever venue with carp, I always start on 2 mils, and if I need to, I will add ground bait. Obviously, depends on if the venue does allow ground bait. So I always have some match method mix with me mixed up, but I always start on 2 mil pellets. So I've got my method feeder set up there. This is just an ICS small method, which we'll be fishing with today because it is really cold. But obviously, you can go up to the large method. I fish the large method obviously when the warmer weather's about, or if you're going on the venue trying to catch an odd big fish, a large method can make a big difference. Got me mold, absolutely fantastic design, doesn't get easier, it just makes method fishing easy. It's certainly made my fishing easy since we bought them, I'll tell you. So all you do, got me little bandem on there, great hook bait. It's probably sort of, when you think about method feeder fishing, that's probably 90%, 80 to 90% of my hook bait is a little bandem. You can't beat them. You catch tons and tons of fish on. You got your different colours, your different sizes, and that will depend on, like any sort of fishing, you might have to just vary that as you go along in the day. But the most important thing is obviously loading the method feeder. I think the easiest way really is, obviously what you got to remember is, if you fill that mold up to the top, your hook bait is right into the frame of the feeder. So what I normally do is fill the mold up so it covers about 3/4 of the mold, put my hook bait in the middle, because that's why that method feeder is designed like that. It's got these two sort of sprayed edges like that. So smack your hook bait in the middle, and then fill the mold up then with your 2 mils like that. I normally just thumb that in slightly, bring your feeder over the top, make sure the line's coming out the same way as the bead. So you've got your hook bait in there, you've got your little loop of line that goes to your quick change bead. Give that a nice little squeeze down, and then pump that onto your hand like that. You've got your little pump at the top, there, it just falls out. Absolutely perfect method feeder there, so it's going to fly really well through the air. And then you can vary where you want your hook bait, and that will depend on where you put your pellets in the mold. So if you want it coming out really quickly, put your hook bait in first. If you want it really deep into the feeder, then obviously fill your mold up first and then put your hook bait in. So when obviously that then will sit right in by the actual feeder itself. But there you go, follow my advice, you know, absolutely perfect 2 mil pellets for the method feeder.